Hey guys, we're going to do the skeletal system PowerPoint. So our essential questions are, what is the main function of the skeletal system and how is it structured, and what are the main organs of the skeletal system? So there are two types of skeletons. There is an exoskeleton and an endoskeleton. So the exoskeleton is an external skeleton. It's on the outside, and so it's almost like a shell of a crab. And then an endoskeleton is on the inside, and that's exactly what we have is an endoskeleton. And that means it's internal and it's made up of bones. All right, since insects have an exoskeleton and they don't have bones, how would our body be if we didn't have bones? And how would your day-to-day activities change? And so just think about that, and maybe we'll do a discussion on it later. The skeletal system, the primary function is to support your body, protect your organs, and be an anchor for your muscles. And so the organs it's going to protect, your rib cage protects your heart and your lungs, your diaphragm, and so that's going to be right in here. And it also, like I said, is an anchor for muscles. And so all your muscles are attached to your bones. So the main organs, are joints and bones. All right, so they support and protect. So it supports the softer tissues. It also protects your brains, your brain, and like I said, your heart and your lungs. All right, so if you can, maybe pause the video and make a list of internal organs that are protected by the skeletal system. And what bones protect those organs? Okay, another function is movement. So your bones help attach your muscles to the bones, and that is what helps you to move. And so if we didn't have bones, we wouldn't have anything for our muscles to attach to and wouldn't be able to move. And they also produces red blood cells. So your red blood cells are produced in your long bones, so like in your femur, which is your big leg bone, in your humerus, which is this long bone right here from your elbow all the way up to your shoulder. And so red blood cells are formed in the bone marrow, in the long bones. They also store calcium. They store calcium and phosphorus and other minerals, and they also maintain homeostasis. So your bones absorb the calcium, and when your body needs it, it releases it, and it helps to maintain a balance in your body. All right, so the human body has 206 bones, and they're classified as long bones, short bones, irregular bones, flat bones, and sesamoid bones. So long bones are going to be like your femur, which is here, your humerus, your ulna, your radius, your tibia, and your fibia. Short bones would be also your fingers. Even though your fingers are short, they're considered to be long bones, okay? You got short bones, you've got irregular bones. So irregular bones would be like your vertebra. You've got flat bones, which would be like your scapula back here, or your cranium, your skull, your cranium bones. Sesamoid bones would be like your patella, which is your knee bone. And short bones would be like your ribs. Okay, so there's two main divisions of the skeletal system. You got your appendicular and your axial. Your axial is going to be the inside bone, so like your cranium, your vertebrae, and your ribs. So that's going to be over here in the blue, and there's only 80 of those bones. There's 126 appendicular bones, and that's going to be all the bones that move, that assist in movement. So like your arms, your legs, your pelvis, and your shoulder girdle, which is your scapula, and your clavicle, which is this bone here. All right, so then you got bone tissues. So you've got compact bone, which makes up the outer layer. You got spongy bone, which is on the inside. Your bone marrow, which is where your red blood cells are made, and your periosteum, which is like a tough fibrous membrane that covers and protects the outer surface of your bones. So out here, that hard part of your bones. Okay, so then you've got joints. So joints help in movement. So their function is range of motion and structure. So range of motion meaning being able to move or do this or turn your head or lift your arm or things like that. And so there's 6 types of synovial joints. You've got a hinge joint, which helps, they only goes front and back, so you can only do this. So that's going to be in your knee, in your elbow. You got the saddle joint, and so the bone sits in the joint like that, and you can move back and forth like this, which is going to be right here between your thumb and your wrist bones. You've got a swivel joint. Swivel joints do where you can only turns around an axis, and so it's going to be like in your neck and in your backbones. So you can only go left or right. You really can go all the way around, but obviously your muscles don't allow your head to go all the way around in a circle. You've got ball and socket, and so the ball and socket is going to be in your hip and your in your shoulder, and so it sits in like this. And it allows a full range of motion. So that's why you can take your arm and go all the way around because of the ball and socket joint. And also in the knee, your hip would be able to do that, but there's a lot of muscles and tendons that surround your hip to allow it not to be able to do that. And so it doesn't have as much of a range of motion as like your shoulder joint would be, but it's the same type of joint. The plane joint would be down in your between your ankle bone and your tibia and fibia, and so that allows motion across a plane. So it'd be able to move something like this across a plane. And then you've got the ellipsoid joint, and that's going to be between your finger bones. So as you can see, you've got different joints between your finger bones, and it allows you to be able to do this. And so you can go back, but not very far. So it's not a hinge joint, but it allows you to be able to move your fingers. Okay, so muscles attach to bones with tendons and ligaments, and then the muscles contract and the skeletal muscles move. So that's what how your skeletal system and your muscular system can work together to help your body to move. All right, so ligaments attach bone to bone and tendons attach muscle to bone. So these would be your ligaments attaching the bone to bone, and these would be your tendons attaching your muscle to your bone. All right, so just a quick quiz. You can pause this and answer these questions if you want to. You don't have to, but just a quick quiz to see if you're understanding. All right, so male versus female skeleton. So the biggest difference between a male and a female skeleton is the pelvis, which is like your hips. And so women have a wider pelvis, and men have a more narrow pelvis. And also, the female skeleton is not as big as a male skeleton. So the bones aren't as thick or dense as a male skeleton. And the female thoracic cage, like your ribs, is a lot smaller and more round than a male. All right, so diseases of the skeletal system. So you've got osteoporosis, which is the loss of bone tissue. So it really happens in older people, and so it would look something like this. And so as you age, or as somebody ages, their skeleton can lose the tissue, and it causes them to have like a little hump in their back. Okay, then you've got osteomalacia, which is softening of bones, and so it looks something like this. This would be like, you see how the shin bones are kind of bent, It's because they're not as strong, because they're so soft, because there's not a lot of vitamin D. And then you've got arthritis, which we all know about arthritis, but it's just swelling or inflammation in the joints. In the joints. And so it looks something like this. All right, and then you've got you've got scoliosis, which is like a curved spine, which I'm sure you've heard of that. They actually used to do scoliosis tests when I was a kid. They would kind of like fill up your back and make sure your spine was straight. Bone cancer, it's 1% of all cancers found in the bones. And then breaks, strains, and fractures. So we all know what that is. You break a bone, you fracture a bone, or you strain a bone. And so it looks something like this. This is like a broken bone. And then a fracture would be like a little cut in the bone. And then a strain could look something like also like a little cut in the bone. All right, and so this is the end of it. Can you identify the structure and main function of the skeletal system and identify the main organs of this system? So remember, the main organs are the bones and the joints. And remember, the function is structure, to give you structure, protection, and to make red blood cells.